Welcome to this month's Friends You Keep. As they say, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And at Erin Wellness, we believe that sustainable health and wellness is an accumulation of 5 pillars: the thoughts you think, the friends you keep, daily movement, nutrition, and lastly, supplementation. So each month we feature guests doing exceptional things that will hopefully inspire you to step into all you are destined to be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friends You Keep podcast. I'm really excited today because I have Andrea Donsky with me. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Erin. It's great to be here.
Thanks for being here. So, known as the menopause educator and researcher with over 340,000 followers on TikTok, Andrea Donsky is a nutritionalist on a mission to change the conversation around perimenopause and menopause. Love that. As an entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in the health and wellness space, Andrea is a respected, multiple award-winning influencer, soon-to-be published researcher, media personality, speaker, and author. Andrea hosts the popular podcast Menopause Reimagined and appears as a menopause expert on television across North America. To date, Andrea has appeared in more than 500 TV segments and has been featured in every major network across the US and Canada. That is incredible. Her latest venture, wearemorphus.com, helps women to reimagine menopause as a journey of empowerment. I definitely feel in with that one. And so we are here, so they feel heard, supported, and validated. Morphus empowers women to take control of their symptoms and health with nutrition, lifestyle, research, and science-backed supplements. Andrea is also currently writing a book about menopause, which will be published in the spring of 2026 by Simon & Schuster. Thank you so much for coming. What a wonderful bio and what great work you've been doing, especially in the perimenopause, menopause space, which definitely has my heart and attention as well.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I've been in the health and wellness space a long time and kind of pivoted there once I started getting symptoms and went into menopause. I'm like, yeah, we definitely I need to focus my attention here, because the way I work is I really like to do and have my company kind of focus on the area of where I am in my life, which has really been the story of my career over the last 25 years.
Yeah. And so let's kind of go into that. So how did it all kind of start? Because you have been in the industry for a really, really long time. I mean, you have numerous awards as well that's not mentioned in your bio, but I know you won the CHFA.
John Holtman.
Yeah.
The John Holtman Award. Yes.
Yeah. Several years ago when I was there too. So, I mean, all of the videos and the accolades, people talking to you that night was really, really impressive. So kind of tell us a bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Thank you. That night was, gosh, I still think about it and I want to cry. It was probably one of the most incredible events in my life in terms of being acknowledged by the health and wellness space and all the years. And at that point, I was in it for 22 years. So it was a nice closure, actually, to the end of my health and wellness activity and my career there, and then really starting to open up into the perimenopause and menopause space.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my first company back in 2000. I approached at the time, my friend, her name is Randy Boyer. I approached her because I had thought of an idea. I had just bought a house and and I was realizing everything was so expensive. So I thought, well, I knew I was working for someone else at the time, and I knew I just had the entrepreneurial spirit ever since I was young. I knew I was going to own my own company. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know when and how. And I had thought of an idea for a coupon book for natural and organic products. I was driving down Avenue Road and I remember thinking, okay, angels, universe, help me. I need an idea because I'm not happy in my current job and I want to do something on my own. And the idea it just popped into my head to do a coupon book because I came from the coupon industry. I was working for FSIs before that. So I thought, well, I went back to school to be a nutritionist. I love natural and organic. Like, why don't we just do coupons for this space? And it hadn't existed at that point. I think there were like 1 or 2 companies that maybe had coupons, like Swiss and Jameson, maybe. Yeah. But as a whole, there were no coupon books and no coupons offered for this space. So I approached Randy. She actually had not been working at the time. They just done a restructuring and she wasn't working. And I'm like, hey, want to go into business with me? I have this great idea. And she was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Oh, and that's when the Healthy Shopper came to be. And we did that for 18 years, which was a coupon book. We distributed it nationally across the country. It was like almost 200,000 coupons, copies. I don't know, I forget, 150, 102, it was something like that, 200,000, 150,000 coupons. And we did it for 18 years and it was really successful. And we were the only coupon book really that did it in that fashion on a national basis for a long time. And then everything started to change. Digital was coming into play. So we pivoted in 2007, even though we were still running the Healthy Shopper, we pivoted to an online company called the Naturally Savvy. It's still around.
Yeah.
And we became a digital company, digital marketing company. And then we had two companies for a while, and then we closed the Healthy Shopper coupon book in 2018, and then focused solely on Naturally Savvy for the next little while until we started Morphus in 2021.
It's amazing. And so when you started the Naturally Savvy, so the Naturally Savvy, because it was on the website, so it has blogs and information, obviously tons of health and wellness information. So I suggest people go there if they're looking for any information about health and wellness and supplements. So you guys started that, and then you started obviously going through perimenopause, menopause. Was it around that time? And then that's when you're like, wait a second here, we need to really start shifting this conversation. And then that's when it kind of developed more into that area.
Oh yeah, so Naturally Savvy, I remember at one point we had like 13,000 articles. Like, and we always say that Naturally Savvy really focuses on that 25 to 35-year-old age group. So and it was our life at the time. So when we started Nat Sav, like we were getting married, we were having kids, like we were in that zone, and everything that we were learning, we were sharing on our website and then some. So once I turned 47, and a couple of months after that, I started getting hot flashes, and I really knew nothing about perimenopause and menopause. And I remember asking around, and it took me a few years to even understand what was happening to my body. And I was kind of, I was very hard on myself at the time because I had been in health and wellness for so long. I'm like, how do I not know this? How do I not know what's happening to my body? I don't get it. And I was, yeah, like I said, at 47 at that time. So I went to Randy, and probably, I don't know, a couple of years later, and it was probably like 99, sorry, in 2019, 2020. And I said, we need to start focusing on perimenopause and menopause. This is where I am in my life now. She at the time didn't even realize either. Like she was in perimenopause, and the more we learned, and then I went into menopause when I was 50, and that was 2020. And then I was like, we need to start focusing on this area. First of all, there aren't a lot of companies in the area. And also, that's where my passion lies. And I'm not very good at doing things that I'm not passionate about.
Yeah.
So, where my passion, my vocation goes to where my passion is. And I thought, well, let's just pivot and let's start really focusing on education around perimenopause and menopause. And at the time, we're like, let's come up with a supplement company as well, because I had been doing everything I possibly could to help my symptoms and try to quell them, and nothing was really working. I tried so many things, Aaron. Like if I tell you, I'm very, what's the word? I'm not ambitious, but I'm very open. I've always been very open to trying things as an N of one.
Mhm.
But what was happening as I was trying these things, some things helped, some things didn't, some things worked for a little while, other things were harmful to my body. And I didn't really understand all of that when it came to being in perimenopause and menopause, because our bodies are changing and they are so different now.
100%.
So I realized that there were things that are sold as menopausal ingredients that I was like, it's just not working for me, or I'm just not loving the research on it. So we're like, let's just start our own company. And that's what we did. So we launched Morphus supplements in 2022. It took us a while to get there. As you know, it takes so long to get anything off the ground. And me with my like crossing my T's and dotting my I's, and Randy's like, okay, we need to like go and do this. So we launched Morphus in 2021 and the supplements in 2022.
Nice. And so Morphus is available in the States, correct?
Yeah. So currently, Morphus, the website from an education standpoint, and we can talk about the research, all that's anywhere, obviously, wherever you are, but we only sell our supplements currently in the US.
Okay. And how many products do you guys have on the market right now?
We have 9 plus a couple of bundles. Yeah. So we've got, and everything is, like everything is third party tested. Everything is backed by research, like very similar in our philosophy and how we do things. That's why I love you and your company so much. And it's giving women what they need at the time in their life that they need it, but also backed by research. So it's like, what is the research telling us? Now, your company, you're a Canadian company, so you also have your NPN, so you have all of that research to back up everything you're doing. As you know, the US is so different, and me being Canadian and selling products in the US, like we come from a totally different perspective. So it's really been interesting to learn about US, selling supplements in the US, but having that Canadian kind of way of doing things. It's to our advantage.
I would think so, yeah, because I think anybody knowing that, I mean, it's because the US, they don't have the regulations we have up here. And if you're abiding by those regulatory standards, being a Canadian company, but selling or having your products in the US, and it's going to give you a lot more, I would think, kind of clout, or a lot more, you know what I mean? Because then people are knowing, okay, well, this is not credibility, right? It's not just this product will do this, because some of the claims, and I think you probably have seen it too, and especially on Facebook and Instagram, some of the ads that I've seen,
Mhm.
will cure menopause symptoms in 30 days. And I'm like, oh my God, that is like, that's a
That's
big claim, right? To put out there. Or, you lose 10
very
pounds in
big.
a week, like that menopausal, like these claims that are allowed to be made. And that's one of my big things that I have that
They're
drive.
actually not allowed to be made. They're just making it until they
They're
are
just
told not to.
Yeah. Well, and Facebook and Instagram just lets them do these outlandish claims, right? Which drives me nuts. That's why I'm kind of
Yeah,
like, I'm really big on, if you're going to be selling into Canada, but your claim should match what you're saying, right? Like your claim should match your
absolutely.
scientific research. But
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, that's the beauty of you guys too, is that you guys are actually, your claims back your research. So you're not just,
Yeah.
saying all this stuff.
And you have to be careful. We can't really make claims in the US, whereas in Canada you can, based on the, backed by the research and the
Yeah.
NPNs, but in the US you can't make any claims. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah, I guess unless somebody trade complains. I know that just seems some of the advertising on Instagram just like blows my mind. Some of the stuff they can get away with saying.
They
It's
push the they push it, right?
they
They
definitely
until they're
push it.
yeah, until they're told not
That's
to.
and so you and Randy have been working together, because I've always thought it's so interesting. I have a couple other girlfriends of mine who have businesses and they have a partner, and I'm like, part of me is like, it'd be so nice to have a business partner to kind of bounce ideas off of, or have somebody kind of be there in moments when you're feeling doubt and like, I don't know if I can do this, to kind of like cheer you on. So you guys have been working together for almost over 20 years.
25. It'll be
That's
25 next year.
incredible.
Yeah,
And
it's really incredible.
and so you guys must obviously, what is her personality and like your personality? Because it's obviously a blend that works really beautifully if you guys been able to do this for this long, and transfer into other businesses as well, and not have either of you going, okay, once I'm done this one, I'm friggin' done with her. I'm going off on my own, right?
I really believe we're an anomaly, and I wish we weren't so. Like, I wish it was more common for women.
Yeah.
So much to say there. First of all, I love that we're having this conversation because I really never get to talk about Randy and I and our business and our partnership. Like, it's normally about health and perimenopause and
Yeah.
menopause. So I love this opportunity to actually talk about entrepreneurship, and I call it partnerpreneurship because
Yeah.
Randy and I are partners. So I did a talk. It's kind of like a TED talk. It's in 2018. It was called Fearless Women.
Mhm.
And it was a 20-minute talk on Randy and I and our business and how we were able to make it through and last this long. So to answer your question, we have very different personalities, no question. So and I do believe that in order to make it work, you can't have the same goals and the same personality when it comes to the same goals, of course, for where you want the direction of the company to go. But let's say, for example, so like I'm more the front person of the company. I'm more the creative mind. I'm more in terms of like business development. Whereas Randy is more, she doesn't want the front facing part of the company. So we never compete in what we're doing. And that is the secret sauce. One of the secret sauces. I have lots of it. So there's lots of ingredients that go into my secret sauce. So that's one ingredient. And so we never compete in terms of like having the visibility, in terms of her being like, no, no, I want to be on TV now. She's like, I never want to be on TV. You always do that. So it just really works, right?
Yeah.
And then Randy's really good at organization. She's great at admin. All things I am absolutely horrendous at. So if you want, and she does accounting. Like if you wanted me to do the accounting of the company and be the admin, we would have been like out of business probably a month or two after we started. So that is not my thing. And what I've learned and we learned early on, is that what we're good at, we're really good at, and we never cross lanes. We speak 100 times a day, and that's how it's been for almost 25 years, but we've never stepped on each other's toes. We are a solid unit, and it is very hard to break us as a unit in terms of partnerships. We've had other partners that have tried to come in. It just unfortunately didn't work when we brought in a third partner, but we are extremely tight, and we have a lot of experience and history under our belt. And
Yeah.
we've been through a lot over the
Yeah, no
years, like
kidding.
a lot, which I can't really get into, but we've been through a lot in terms of with other partners. So, what was interesting, and I do believe so, one ingredient is really not having that jealousy and never competing. The other ingredient is 1000% important because you need to have open communication. And in the beginning, when Randy and I first started, we fought a lot because we were just getting to know each other, and it came close. There was a time where it came close that we almost did not make it through our partnership. This was in the first year, like really, really early on. But what we learned to do, and this is probably our biggest flex, is we fight like anyone else will. We don't always agree. We don't always see eye to eye, but ever since the beginning, we would have, let's say we would have an argument or we would have a fight, which we don't really have anymore. Now we're just like, okay, stop saying that. Or like now we're like vocal and we communicate properly. But in the beginning, when we didn't have those communication skills and we would argue, 5 minutes later, like let's say we'd be like, oh my God, angry, angry, angry. And then 5 minutes later, we'd hang up. 5 minutes later, her or I would call each other back and be like, okay, so where were we? Like we never held a grudge. We never let it upset us. It never affected our partnership or our business that way. And this was after like we learned how to communicate with each
Yeah.
other. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. We don't ever, 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 ever hold a grudge or go to sleep angry or go more than like 10 minutes like upset with each other. Like it just doesn't happen. And it never did in the 25 years that we were almost together.
It's amazing. I think of my girlfriend Jen, who you know as well. And Jen works,
Love
she
Jen.
helps and supports me on my business as, she works with me as well during that. And it's kind of the same thing. Jen is very good at operations, very good at the background stuff. And Jen never wants to be the person who's out there. So it is this kind of perfect, like nice mesh that we have. And she's been so instrumental in the growth of Erin Wellness and also my own personal development growth too. But kind of the same thing. I think we've had like one argument once, and then it was like, when I was hurt and then she was hurt and she was like, hey, was not kind what I said. I'm like, I'm so sorry too. You just come right back right away and you kind of begin to acknowledge because you recognize the friendship or the partnership is so much more important than anything else. Right. So at the end of the day, it's
Very
like,
much
okay,
so.
right? What's my fault in this? How can I grow from this? And I think I have a couple girlfriends, as I mentioned, who have business partners, and the one I can think of, they are such good friends as well, right? Like they're like soulmate friends. I think that's probably maybe you and Randy are probably somewhat along those lines as your
Oh, we're
business
such
partners,
good
but you're also
friends.
soulmates, right? Like I believe that I say this, the loves of your life don't necessarily have to be a man, a love of your life or a
Mhm.
physical sexual partner. It can
Yeah.
be your girlfriends. My daughter's one of the loves of my life, and so I think about that. And yeah, so obviously Randy is one of the loves of your life.
Oh, she definitely is. I mean, we are such good friends, and I mean, it's not like we hang out together 24/7 when we're not working because over the years, and we do, our husbands adore each other. I've actually was very good friends with her husband before I even knew Randy.
Oh, no
So
way.
that's how Randy and I met. Her husband set us up. He was like, "You
Oh,
should
no
be friends."
way.
Yeah, he came because when they moved to
Funny.
Toronto, I moved to Toronto, both Montreal, ex-Montrealers, and when I moved to Toronto, this was in, oh gosh, this was so long ago, 1996, I think it was. It was a long time ago. And he said to me, Howard said to me, he's like, you should be friends with Randy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, so, cause she was like, let's go shopping. Let's do this. Cause she had no friends here. And he's like, okay, you need another friend. So he called me and he's like, I need to set you up. And we became great friends. We'd go for dinner every Friday night. Like we really hit it off. So it made perfect sense for us to actually
Yeah,
become business partners, but not friendship doesn't always work in business. So
doesn't. Yeah.
you need those secret ingredients to your sauce because that's the key that helps to that's what gives it longevity. And I have a great story. In 20, I think I'm trying to remember back. It's like 2010. It was before I wrote Unjunk Your Junk Food. And Randy and I attended. So we were trying to find a publisher for our book for this concept that I wanted to write about. And we went to a party and we met Michael Eisner, who is the CEO of Disney.
Oh,
He,
wow. How
he
cool.
wasn't like he wasn't at the time, but he had been the CEO of Disney. And he just wrote a book on partnerships.
Yeah.
And it came out, I believe it came out in 2010, something around there. And I forget the name what it was called, but it was a book about partnerships that worked. And he was in there with his partner, and there was also like Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, and there were like, I don't know, 10 different partnerships. Warren Buffett was in there with his partner, and he had all of these different partners. And I remember saying to him, and I'm like, so who's in your book? Like, are they all male partners? Is there a female partner? He's like, well, he's like, it was really hard for me to find two women partners. He said we did include them, but they were actually a couple and they were life partners as well. I was like, but what do you mean you couldn't find female partnerships? He's like, Andrea, not easy to find. It's very rare. And this was back again in 2010. And I said to Michael at the time, because I mean, whatever, I just, like to say things. And I was like, Michael, when you write your next book, you need to include Randy and I. And I was kind of half joking and half not. I'm like, because we know the formula of what makes things work. And that was 2010. Now we're 2024 and we're still together as
Yeah.
partners. But I was totally serious. I'm like, we have written the book on how to be female business partners because it can work. And I'd like to, and I see now more and more partners are coming up and I love it because it definitely can work. Two women, when they work together, it's such a beautiful thing.
It
in
is
my opinion.
100%. Well, and so you also have a digital marketing company. Is that you guys together as well?
So Morphus now is an e-commerce company, and
Okay.
yeah, that's us together. Yeah, so it's our
So that
third
is the
company.
digital marketing company as well. Okay. Because I was wondering that with the like looking at the digital landscape, I know myself, it's been most of my sales come from retail, right? Like in stores, which is different because a lot of companies are more focused D2C or Amazon and whatnot. So that's one of the feature or one of the things I'm really looking at this year is how do I grow that? How do I expand that direct to consumer concept, right? Without taking away from my retailers as well. So when you look at that, I mean, especially with your experience in kind of the digital landscape marketing and with everything that you guys do, what do you think is one of the struggles that people have when they're looking at like online or looking direct to consumer? Do you
You mean
have,
companies?
yeah, like what
The
a
company.
company struggle with, you think?
So let
Or
me kind of give the bit of the story.
yeah,
So when Randy and I launched Morphus, we launched it on our website. So we launched an e-commerce site. That's where we went. We didn't like so we're trying to get on Amazon. We're trying to do other things. We didn't launch in store. So we kind of come from the other
you come from the
direction,
other end, yeah,
the other end. So we never launched in store. We launched first on our website. So currently our sales are only coming from our website, which
yeah,
we wanted also because we really wanted to understand the customer. We wanted to understand our products. What are they looking for? What are our best sellers? What are we, like, so all of that, like because we always came from the marketing end of things and never from an actual supplier of products or
yeah,
like manufacturer of products, we didn't know anything. So
yeah,
this was like all a huge learning curve for us, especially having a e-commerce site. Like we knew I look back now and now it's like a couple of years, but we knew nothing about like e-commerce marketing, like zero. So we had to learn everything from scratch, which also took us so long to get up and running. Now we've come a long way. And
yeah.
that a lot of that, by the way, is Randy's expertise. So she
Okay.
has really spent the time to learn e-commerce, and also Lisa, who works with us, like our team, like they have spent a lot of time trying to really understand e-commerce. And I'm going to give kudos to them because that wasn't me. That was really them. And that again, the benefit of having, like you said earlier, having a partner where it's not you doing everything, right?
Yeah,
Like you have people that can help you. So I'm going to give them kudos. They've
yeah.
learned it, so like e-commerce marketing, how to use Shopify, like all of that has really been them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then looking at, I mean, I guess with looking, because it is National Menopause Month, so we definitely want to touch on that. So that's a big thing. Actually, what was it? The 18th, right? It was National Menopause Day. I did
Yeah.
my dance
Me
in my
too.
white pants. Because everybody's wearing white pants.
That's right.
And so we look at this and how much more awareness is really brought to this subject, especially this month, right? Like this was not, I mean, and maybe it's because I'm perimenopause, going into menopause, that I notice it more. I began
Mm,
thinking about
yeah.
that, reflect back like years ago. I'm like, but now I think it's the advantage of all of this is women who are in their 20s and 30s and our children, like our daughters, will have an understanding, a greater understanding of what's going on in their body. They will have an understanding that, oh, this is going to I need to take care of myself because if I don't, and my estrogen goes in the tank, and then all of a sudden I haven't taken care of myself all these years, it's going to make it so much harder. And so when I think about what would be something when you talk to women, you're talking about menopause, if you were able to give somebody in their 30s, I guess, right?
Mm.
Like these are the things you really need to start paying attention to now. And I probably know them all, but I want you to share what do you think is what is the things you really tell women in their 30s to pay attention to?
So I know a lot of us creators who are women who are focusing. So I don't think it's just you. I think it definitely is becoming a huge thing. And I think it's here to stay. I think women, Gen Xers especially, like we've had it. Like it's like we're like that generation where, where we we love being Gen Xers, but also we scream things from the rooftops. Like we went through this, didn't know anything, and now we want to change that for the up and coming
Yeah,
generations, millennials, the Gen Zs, and everyone that follows them. So I would think that because we went into it not knowing anything, and the boomers, nobody, like my mother, she never spoke about menopause or perimenopause. Her mother never spoke about it, right? So we're really trying to change the stigma around it and the way that we look at perimenopause and menopause because to me, had I known, like I went through perimenopause I was in it for 14 years total.
yeah.
11 years. So get this, Aaron, 11 out of the 14 years, I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
11 out of the 14 years, I had no idea. Can you imagine? So this is, and by the way, I'm not a single case. This
Yeah,
is very common among among Gen Xers. So we go into this, and at the time, I remember asking so many people, 2016, 2017, I'm asking people, I'm like, are you experiencing this? Like, what's happening to your body? Do you wake up fine and then you're rageful 5 minutes later? Are you gaining and losing weight? Are you not sleeping? Are you exhausted? Like, all the symptoms, and I'll get into the 103 plus symptoms, which is part of the work we're doing. But I remember asking people, my friends, my colleagues, and coworkers, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I would think to myself, oh my gosh, am I going crazy? Is just this me? Is it just me? It must just be me because nobody else is experiencing this. And a lot of them were around my age, especially my friends. But what I came to realize is that it is not just me. And it is like thousands and thousands and thousands of us who are experiencing the same thing. It's just, it wasn't spoken about. And there was a stigma that was attached to it. And even myself, I remember at 47, when I got my first hot flash, my first thought was, oh my gosh, am I in menopause? Wait, isn't menopause for old people? Like literally simultaneously, those were thoughts that were going through my mind. Like, isn't my grandmother, like my mother? Like, it was like, so hard for me to fathom at 47 years old, who's still in my head, I was 30, that
Yeah.
was going through menopause, right? I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know the word perimenopause existed. It is a newer term, but still, like, I didn't know anything. So for me, my mission really is, there's so many parts of my mission, but to get rid of the stigma, which is already happening from so many people who are talking about it, but to educate the younger generation. My daughters, my son, now my husband, they know what menopause is. They know what perimenopause is. It is spoken about like anything else in our house. There is no shame around it. And what my goal would be, and I'm working on some pretty amazing things, including my book.
Mhm.
What my goal would be is to speak about it so openly, like who cares? Like now,
Yeah.
it's kind of like where periods are now. Like they have normalized periods
Very
to the
much so.
point where like who cares, right? Like we all talk. Everyone. Well, if you're female, you're born female. You're going to get a period, right? Like that's what it is. So that's my goal for menopause, and so the younger generation understands it. So what's one of the key aspects to that? Of
Mhm.
course, open discussion, education, and education around symptoms. So,
Yeah.
why is that so important? Several years ago, I was at a party and I saw an old friend and I ran into her and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm working on an app for menopause symptoms. And I thought at the time, I'm like, I said to her, an app for menopause symptoms? Like, don't you need to have a lot of them? She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like 34 to 40. And I'm like, oh, that is a lot. Okay. And the way my brain works is I'm very analytical. And I went home and I started this Google Doc and I started tracking symptoms. And over the next several years, I was tracking different symptoms. And I'm like, I got really quickly, they added up to a lot more than
Yeah.
34, like, well, actually, a lot more than the 34 to 40. But if you Google anywhere online, it says 34 recognize the symptoms still today.
Yeah.
So I discovered there were like 85 plus back. This was a couple of years ago. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't I just go to my community and ask them what they're experiencing? So
Mhm.
we started a survey called our Signs and Symptoms Survey back in 2022. We now have almost 5,000 responses to that
Wow.
survey.
That's amazing.
We now know there are 103 plus symptoms. There's not
Wow.
34. So like that has got to change. And by the way, in writing my book, I tried to find the source of the 34 symptoms. I even went to the Menopause Society in the US and they said they had no idea where it originated from. So,
Really?
yep. So we now, which is I'm so proud of, is that because of my analytical brain and my passion for research, we have 10 surveys, almost actually, no, we have 11 surveys. We just added a new one. Surveys for perimenopause and menopause symptoms. We have doctor's visits, women in the workforce. We have a lot of different surveys, but 4 abstracts will be published in the journal Menopause in December, which is why, as you
That's
said, a soon to
amazing.
be, I'll be a I'll be published menopause researcher.
That's amazing. That's so,
Thank
so
you.
incredible. Well, and
Thank
it's,
you.
I think when I'm doing my talks, and one of the things I always ask everybody too, is I ask everybody if they have a menopausal plan. That's always a big question I ask everyone. I'm like, when you're pregnant, when you're 9 months pregnant, you don't walk into your doctor and say, so what am I doing with this? Like, when am I coming in? Like the minute you find out you're pregnant, you're reading the books and joining the moms groups and like doing all the stuff. And do you want natural? Do you want to use water? Do you want music? Do you want like whatever it is, right? Where do you want to have your baby? All the things, you become so engrossed in it. And it's so interesting how there's never been conversations about women having the exact same advocacy for themselves when it comes to having a menopausal plan, going in and talking to your practitioner. And if that practitioner shuts you down and tells you you're just getting old, you know that's not the doctor you need to work with. And in that gives you time to go find somebody who will actually listen to you and have empathy and compassion, have a conversation and give you all the options available, right? And you can then make the choice to what feels best for you and what aligns better with your values and how you want to kind of carry out your plan. Because that's the thing. I think what's happened is so many women just kind of get hit up the head with this and are not sure what's going on. And so that's one of the things I'm like, go in and next time you have your doctor's appointment, just ask him, what's your take on menopause? How many people are you working with? I'd like to really look at what my plan's going to be in the next 5 years, especially if you're in your early 40s, right? Well, how's that going to look for me? And in that, start reading the books, start joining groups, start really paying attention, because at your senior life and how we plan on aging powerfully, it depends on what we're doing right now, right? It's just so instrumental to what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. It's all about empowerment, which is why Morphus exists, why you exist. Like, we need to empower women to ask the right questions. We need to empower them, like my mom says, with the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us don't have the vocabulary that what's happening to their body. So that's why educating doctors, whether it's us, whether it's medical schools, whether it's, excuse me, whoever it is, educating doctors is really important, because
100%.
they need to learn about it. They need to understand it and not dismiss and not gaslight women, so we had a survey called Doctors Visit Survey, and only 10%, and this was 1,050 women who answered this survey, and only 10% of doctors and healthcare providers bring up the topic of perimenopause and menopause to them. Only 10%. And when we're talking about when they go in with their symptoms and they're talking about their symptoms, only 10% of the doctors brought it up as a possible connection between how they're feeling and it being perimenopause and menopause. And 40% of these women were dismissed. So we really have a lot of work to do in
100%.
terms of helping women. And this was a survey, by the way, that was in both taken in both Canada and the US. And what was interesting is there was very little difference between the two countries. And that was something I really wanted to understand. Even though we have very different healthcare programs, very little difference in terms of education and how women are treated.
Well, even the amount of women, I remember I was in Coquitlam speaking, and this lady came up after, and she said she wanted to come and talk to me first because she went to see her doctor. And she said, I've been really dealing with depression. And she said, and she's 47, 48, and her doctor gave a prescription for antidepressants. She goes, I don't really want to take them. And so I just asked her, I said, first off, I'm not a doctor. I said, and also too, I'm not against antidepressants, because that's one of the reasons we have them. If you do need them, then I do believe there's a call for medicine. And so, but I said, have you ever struggled with depression ever in your entire life? And she's like, I've never, ever, ever been depressed. And I'm like, and you're 48. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, and he didn't even begin to mention, like, he just automatically wanted to put you onto antidepressants. I said, now I'm not telling you not to take it. I'm not telling you to, but to me, it's a little bit of like, then maybe you need to go talk to somebody different, because right now he's not giving you what you exactly need. Because if you've never dealt with depression, then, that to me is a big call.
You're totally right. And our Doctors Visit Survey showed us that the number one treatment option for women right now currently being done by doctors is antidepressants.
Yeah.
And that's neck and neck with hormones. So when I was in September, I actually I showcased 4 of our posters of our research. So we have 4 abstracts, like I said, being published in the journal Menopause. And I attended the Menopause Society's annual conference and showcased 4 posters. It was really cool. I had these 4 by 8 feet long posters of our research. It was awesome. And the doctors that came by, they themselves, listen, I'm not a doctor either, so I agree with you. We can't tell people what to do or not to do. But the doctors themselves said, it's a shame, and it shouldn't be antidepressants, which is the number one treatment. It should be either hormones or whatever else. In third place, by the way, was supplements, which I thought was really interesting. But you're not alone in thinking that, because the doctors themselves, who are menopause specialists, said the same thing.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting in the next couple of years, I think. And now we've just seen a whole insurgence, right, really coming into the space. And in that too, I think there's some people who really heavily crap on hormones, and there's some people who really crap on supplements. And so I think there is a common, I also really believe in using all dualities, whatever's best for you. And that's the thing. If hormones are what you feel called, and if that's what works best for you, then I think that's what you should do. But then I also think supplements then have to also be in that. Like we need to have anti-inflammatories. We need to be, having, to me, creatine's a big one for me, but looking at having protein, having vitamin D, having the things as well. So it becomes this kind of, you're using all dualities to make yourself feel optimized at all times, right?
1,000%.
Right?
1,000%. And I always say we have a toolbox, and our toolbox is nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements, not an option,
Yeah.
and or hormones. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean like you could use
Yeah.
everything together. And I have interviewed so many doctors that are like, yes, absolutely, we should be using hormones. But yeah, you're always going to find people that are pro and against anything that
Yeah.
you're going to do. I think at the end of the day is being discern like you have to be discerning who you're getting your information from.
Yeah.
And that is really my mantra. Like, be discerning who you're getting it from. Also, don't only take one person's opinion into account.
100%. 100%. And I guess being open to the other thing too with women, I was talking to some women in Red Deer, and and maybe it's interesting because I find my algorithm is all menopause, perimenopause, 24/7, but I was talking to one lady there, and she goes, nobody I know is talking about perimenopause. I don't know anybody who's talking.
Oh,
I know, actually,
wow.
I was like, are you on social media? But because I mean, that's all I hear
That's all
about.
I do see too. But
Right?
that's because we're looking at it,
I know,
right?
because we're looking at it too. And she said, I don't want to, her doctor, she's had horrible conditions. She goes, my doctor's prescribed me hormones. She goes, but I'm scared to take it because it's going to cause cancer. I'm like, but that's not necessarily the case
Yeah.
either. I said, so there is going to be, I think, still more waves of people who are beginning to have a better understanding or becoming more educated. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to us also doing the research too and looking into it, having,
Yeah.
people you can look at and listen to, who you can trust, but then
Absolutely.
also going and reading the books and, looking at stuff that's going to work for you. And yeah, I think that's another really big thing
Yeah.
that hopefully we see more of that awareness coming through for the
Oh, I
next
totally
event.
agree.
Right. So we're going to kind of start rounding it off here, but I wanted to ask, what is one piece of advice you'd give an entrepreneur starting out? Because you have had such incredible, successful businesses. What's a piece of advice you'd give?
So I always say, and this is the same piece of advice I give to my children and have raised my children with, is take responsibility for your actions.
Yes,
And
I love
I
that.
I feel like I feel like we need to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I feel especially as an entrepreneur, partnerpreneur, whatever you are, solopreneur, I feel like taking responsibility for your actions, will go so far with if you're working with someone, you have a partner, but also with your customers. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I was wrong, and here's how I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
And there were so many stories over the years where Randy and I did that and took responsibility, and we still have many of those clients today. So
Yeah.
I feel like that would be it's a life lesson and one that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Okay, so now we've got, aside from your incredible businesses, you are a mother and a partner. How do you find time for balance? And does that word exist to you?
So I would have said, had you asked me this question, I'd say probably even like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said, I don't believe in balance. And as an entrepreneur, there is no balance.
Yeah.
And that was true for so many years of my life. I mean, building, right? Building companies, I mean, I didn't start one, I started three different businesses. Like it was like I just remember being so overwhelmed, and I was just as passionate about every single one of them that I did when I was starting them. And when you start something, you need to work. Like, as
Mhm.
you know, Erin, it's a lot of work, right? Like you're 24/7. You're like, I remember when Randy and I started Healthy Shopper, we were like doing in-store demos of products that were in our book. I mean, we went over backwards to like make the brands happy. We would make the retailers happy, make the customers happy. We were doing every show. And I was like, there was no balance. And I was raising small kids. And I was a part, like you said, like it was just so overwhelming. And I would work till 2 a.m. I couldn't find balance. I really could not. Then when I went into menopause, I had no choice because I couldn't burn the candle at both ends anymore. Like it
100%.
just wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Sleep is now my number one priority. And I do not work 24/7. Now, I try to end like even at night, I really try not to work past a certain time anymore. Whereas before I'd go put the kids to bed, come back, work till 2 in the morning. Like it was insane. Now, no, 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 no. I really try to go to bed at a decent hour every night because if I don't, then I know that it's going to affect me majorly in other
Yeah.
ways. So I would say the word balance does exist for me now, being in menopause and being where I am. Now, starting Morphus, we definitely, work hard and we do what we need to do. But I also know, and so does Randy, I know when to say, no, it's okay. Tomorrow's
Yeah.
another day and
Yeah.
we'll do it tomorrow. Plus my kids are older. I just have one little one at home. So it's a little bit easier. And writing this book, I'd say, is probably the main reason. Like, so I do work a little bit more now. Like I work weekends. Like it is a little bit harder for me now, but I still have balance. Like I'm a basketball assistant basketball coach for my daughter's team. I'm done. Like 6 o'clock comes around, rolls around. I'm like at basketball practice with my daughter. And when
Mhm.
I come back, I'm not going back to work. So I'm trying to be more, what I'm trying to learn now is efficiency. So
Yeah.
how to be more efficient with my time. Still not perfect at it. I'm still really
Yeah.
trying, not that we're perfect at anything ever. It's always practice, right? Or, it's not perfection, but I'm trying to be more efficient with my time but I would say I'm able to now achieve balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. I try to be much more efficient. That's for sure too. And sitting down and doing blocks. I find blocks work well for me, right? I'll do
Yeah.
like 30 minutes of work and then I like step back.
Yep.
Instagram will be like my commercial break for 4 minutes and I'm gonna go back again, but
Yep.
give myself that, focusing for a shorter period of time
Totally.
actually works really well for me too.
Totally.
Okay. So what was one thing you would tell your 20-year-old self?
Hmm. I would tell her that everything's going to be okay.
Mhm.
And not to stress so much. Just let
Yeah.
things be. Trust the universe. Trust that what things are meant to be. And again, still learning that, right? Like it's one of those things of like just trust the universe. And I do believe that if things are meant to be, they will be. I believe that obviously we have free will, but I
Yeah.
do believe that in the grand scheme of things that we have partners, like our universe partners to help us, and whatever's in our best and highest interest, I do believe is there for us. So just to trust more and not stress on the little things, not to sweat the little things. Like I would say more around the anxiety and stress part. And just, yeah, trust that everything's gonna be okay.
And what is your favorite go-to treat? Are you salty or
Chocolate.
savory?
So
Chocolate?
chocolate
You're
for
sweet?
sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And what's your favorite swear word?
I can swear on this
Say it.
podcast.
You can say it.
Fuck for sure.
That's what everybody says. Motherfucker seems to be a big one too. But yeah,
Oh, that's funny. Definitely love to use the word fuck. I'm like, it's like an empowering word. I
it
know, I
is.
know. I love it.
It's stress relieving. They've actually said that. Swearing is like it helps it helps relieve stress.
I love it. I
Good
can't
thing, right?
complain. Like, I mean, my kids laugh at me all the time, but yep, I swear a lot.
It's funny. I was saying on the last podcast, it's Michaela. I don't let her swear around me. She's not allowed to swear, but it's funny. I can't swear around my mom either. Like if I'm like fuck around my mom, she'll be like Erin, and I'm like, oh, sorry. Like it's still. And now with Michaela, it's the same thing. She'll be like frig,
Fun.
but I know when she's not around me, she'll say,
That's so funny.
right. All right. So tell us where can everybody find you? Where can they find Morphus? Where can they learn all about the stuff that you've got going on?
Sure. So on social media, I live on TikTok. So at Andrea Donsky. On Instagram, we're at We Are Morphus. I also have my personal Instagram at We Are at Andrea Donsky. And then my website, which is We Are Morphus, MORPHUS. So like it's metamorphosis, morph, us as a community. So we just put the two words together. We made it up. Morphus. So wearemorphus.com.
Love that. And so people have to watch out for your book, 2026, right? That's the date your book's coming out?
2026. Simon
Awesome.
and Schuster is publishing it. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's so great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I completely appreciate it. It's been wonderful having this conversation. And to everybody else, stay tuned for next month's Friends You Keep.